The Dominican Friary was founded in 1475 by a member of the Roche family, prominent landowners in medieval North Cork. Known locally as the Abbey, the Dominican Friary on the north side of Glanworth village seems a simple affair. It comprises a long building divided by a tower, is in reasonable condition, and on the surface unremarkable. The apparent plainness, however, belies a checkered history, and it is in fact the remains of a much more extensive establishment. Dominican friars came early to County Cork, establishing houses in Cork City and at Youghal during the 13th century. 2 centuries later, when their lifestyle had grown more comfortable, some of them began to hanker for a stricter form of life, more in keeping with the ideas of St. Dominic. This group, known as observants, set about establishing convents of their own, particularly in Connacht, from 1414. Their inspiration led in time to the foundation of a house of observants in Glanworth in 1475, and the reform of the convent of Youghal some 10 years later. The guiding spirit of the foundation in Glanworth was Father Louis McCrae, Prior Provincial or General Superior of the Dominicans in Ireland. With the permission of William Roche, Bishop of Cork and Clyne, he got leave from John Fitzgerald, the Ninth of Kerry, to take over an abandoned stone enclosure with certain lands adjoining the town of Glanworth. The bishop had already consecrated a cemetery and an oratory there to prevent it from reverting to lay hands. All this was approved by Pope Sixtus IV in 1475. The legal founder was therefore a Fitzgerald, which explains why the abbey was dedicated to Holy Cross, the only emblem on that family coat of arms. For all that, the local leader, David Moore Roche, 1st Viscount of Fermoy, has always been regarded in practical terms as the founder and chief benefactor of the abbey. In those days, there was no strict connection between the actual occupancy of land and the legal ownership of it. The new Dominican church was a small and simple building, consisting only of a nave and chancel, separated by a low square tower, supported on 4 finely pointed arches. The elaborate east window of 4 lights with Gothic tracery, removed 1820, for use in the parish church, was restored to its rightful place by the Board of Works in 1992. Other windows, though square on the outside, are beautifully arched on the interior. The most unusual and puzzling feature is the door of the church, which one would expect to find in the middle of the western wall. This is set into the base of the tower on the northern side. The abbey buildings were nonetheless substantial enough, since they comprised a cloister, dormitory and hall at the time of their suppression in 1541. The hall was probably the refectory, and there was also a cemetery beside the church. The friars then owned 10 acres of arable land, but their total valuation, 10 shillings a year, was much the lowest of the 20 Dominican houses seized and valued by the state in the same year. Even small convents like Rosbercon and Arklow were worth 2 and 3 times as much. The friars probably recovered the property, as did their confreres of Youghal, in the time of Queen Mary, 1554 to 1558, only to lose it again after the Desmond rebellions, from which even the poorest farm labourers in Cork suffered so much. In 1578, the church and priory were again leased to three gentlemen, Pratt, Usher and Hewitt, who were not local planters, but speculated in several similar lots in many parts of Ireland. In 1605, David Roche, Viscount Fermoy, put in a petition to the Crown, seeking the return of the poorhouse of preaching friars in Glanworth, with its lands which were once in his family. The friars, of course, had long since gone, not to reappear in any historical record for quite some time. Although the Dominicans as a whole began to recover from the confiscation and persecution after 1600, it took them quite a while to set up house again in all the places where they once had a home. They were back in Cork City by 1604. One finds them at Youghal by 1638, but Glanworth, as it was still called, was neither a well-populated centre capable of supporting friars, nor a town likely to figure much in official records. David Roche, Prior of Glanworth in the 1640s, was said to have been famous throughout Munster for holiness and learning. He was also one of Cromwell's victims, for he was shipped with thousands of others to Barbados after the siege of Limerick. From there he made his way to St. Kitts, but was killed in 1653 when caught saying Mass for his fellow Irish exiles. Even during Cromwell's time, the Dominicans hung on in Ireland, though living very secretly. Even with Cromwell dead, and the king restored in the person of Charles II, the second half of the 17th century was a time of intermittent and brutal persecution for priests and people. The friars of Glanworth did manage to receive some novices in the 1670s, but then came the Popish plot, 1679 to 1681, which forced the prior, Gerald Gibbon, to escape to Belgium, where he died soon after. That was the fabricated plot which cost St. Oliver Plunkett his life. Under the Catholic king, James II, who came to the throne in 1685, there was a brief period of toleration until his defeat in 1691. The Dominicans of Glanworth took advantage of this break in the clouds. Their little community of 4 rose to 8 in 1686 after they admitted 4 novices. The prior throughout this period was Constantine Garvan. One wonders where they actually lived. The usual practice for such a community to have what was called a house of refuge in the neighbourhood, sometimes as much as 8 miles from their original convent. On this interesting point, we are left completely in the dark. The novices are likely to have come from the immediate neighbourhood, where Glashan, Brown, Barry and Byrne. One of them, John Brown, later made his name in Rome, where he was confessor to James III, the exiled Stuart, and his Polish queen, Clementina Sobieski. The Dominican connection with Glanworth came to an end after 3 centuries of service and persecution. If their presence there in the 18th century was feeble enough, the career of John Nugent ensured that they went out in style.